welcome back to the Green Connection. Um, this time we've got something a little bit different. Sustainability and preservation really go hand in hand, and it's hard to say which is more important. And with us today as our guest, we have Guy Wood Chipman. And if you watch the show for the last 10 years, I think he was on about 10 years ago. I didn't know all of the preservation things he was doing then. I thought it was just individual homes. But as it turns out, he's done a lot of San Antonio's historic district and historic listed homes, and has repaired them and gone over them. So we decided that today we would talk about the sort of history of construction. Guy Wood Chipman with Chipman Construction. He goes by Guy and Wood and Chipman.
I've got quite a few names.
Other names also?
Wood Chip and all, and some people call me Wood, and old friends call me Woody, and anyway, so it's
Is that why you went from Guy to Wood, so you'd be Wood Chip?
Yes, exactly. My old
funny.
friends know me as Woody, and so my next half century I'm going to go as Wood. You know, my middle name is Wood, and so that's where that comes from.
Well, I don't know. I thought immediately when I thought of Guy Wood Chipman, I was thinking of chipmunk.
Oh yeah, I've been called just about everything since I was a young boy.
Well, your background in preservation, actually you started out your degrees in architecture, right?
That's correct. I graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington in 1989, and had some time spent working for architects. I worked for home builders and then went back to work for the architects. So I have a broad variety of work that I've done, both construction and design.
Well, you worked with Fisher Heck, and Louis Fisher, I've had him on the show a couple of times. They sort of specialize in rehabbing and taking over, particularly, I think, commercial projects, courthouse and stuff like that. And while you were there, is that where you got the idea of preservation is a pretty good thing?
I really did. I enjoyed working on the historic structures around South Texas, and I was able to work on the San Fernando Cathedral and the Atascosas County Courthouse and St. Peter's Prince of the Apostles Church and St. Patrick's Church and many older buildings around South Texas, even dating back to the 1700s. And that was a wonderful experience, and I realized there's not too many people that specialize in that type of work. And so I said, you know, if I can get really good at historic preservation, I'll always have a job, and it's worked out pretty well so far.
Yeah, when you were on before, it was a farmhouse in...
Up in Bernie.
Yeah.
Yes, and we did work on the Her Farm up in Bernie. It's owned by the Cibolo Nature Center, and it has a farmer's market open every Saturday from I think 9 till 12:30 or so. You can go out there and check out the house that we restored and get your vegetables at the same time. It's really a neat place to see. The house was actually my great-great-grandfather's house. He was a pioneer doctor, and it was his summer home.
Oh.
And he lived up there, and in the summer, when the cholera was bad and San Antonio was not a good place to live, and then would move back to San Antonio in the winter. And he practiced medicine all over the hill country and performed a cataract operation there on the grounds on an Indian brave in the 1860s.
That must have been a first.
It was one of the first cataract operations in the United States. He was a pioneer. He'd studied in Germany medicine and brought back what he had learned, and he restored the vision of this young Indian that had a cataract problem.
Isn't that interesting? All these houses have a story to tell, don't they?
Oh yeah, and it's so fun. It's like unwrapping the layers of an onion. You know, you just keep finding different things inside, and there are little secrets hidden inside the buildings, and you'll see the lumber yard where they came from. It'll be handwritten in like cursive up on the beams, and it'll say Mission Lumber or Steves and Sons, and the phone numbers were 4 digits back then. It was, you could call the Mission Lumber, and their phone number was 3032. So there was only 9,900.
Not 44444.
No, there was only 9,999 phone numbers in San Antonio at the time. You know, when that phone number was around. So,
How do you think? I looked up the sort of history of the ancient architecture and ancient construction, how do you think, I had a couple of still photos. As a matter of fact, I think we're running a video on the pyramids, which will show how construction actually started and the innovative ways that they used to build the pyramids. Unbelievable, carrying the stones up to that point of its top, and how much of this ancient knowledge we're still using. We're going to run the video.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay. The early tools, as an example, is another thing. Actually, I read, and I hope all this stuff is accurate, that the monkeys were the original tool users. They used wood spear kind of tool to break into the ant bed so they'd get food. And that's 4 million years ago. And then about 2.5 million years ago, people started using stone tools. And I think we have some photographs of the original tools. And when you look at them on the sheet, you can see that they have the hammer, which is a pounding tool, and then they have a planing tool, and they have a cutting tool. And so what these have evolved in then is the modern tools of the saw and the hammer. And I think, do you use, I know you mentioned that you saw some, I believe, measuring.
Oh, yes. Speaking of the Egyptians, I was fortunate enough to, when I was in architecture school, to see the King Tut exhibit. I think it came to Dallas at the time. And they had a wonderful example of the tools that were used to create the pyramids. There was a level that was for leveling horizontal surfaces. And what it was just an A-frame like this. And it had a string and a plumb bob that came down in the center. And when the surface was level, that string would line up with the line in between the bottom of the A. And if it was out of level, the string would go to one side or the other. And it's such a simple tool to level a surface, and it could be expanded in size. So if you needed a wider surface, you could make a wider triangle. And they're just so simple.
So
and
the
use
same
gravity.
principles are
But
used in,
yeah, we use the same kind of principles today. We use the plumb bob still to this day.
how do you okay, early materials, wood was not really used extensively in Europe. It was found because they thought it would rot, and it was not. Many of the builders associations haven't heard that yet, but Every time they come up with something different, a different material, it goes back to wood. But then it went to stone and the concrete, which very early they learned to form concrete blocks and build buildings. And amazingly, many of the architectural styles are almost duplicated in apartments and in others. I had a photo, I don't know if they showed it yet, on a Jerusalem architecture in an ancient quarry. And they had what, I don't know how high rise, but it looked like high rise, and made out of probably mud brick because it was brick.
Well, on the older buildings, the key was locally sourced materials. And like the Herf farm, it was located next to the Cibolo Creek. And we found in the edge of the creek where they cut the stones out of the rock wall of the creek, there was marks where the drills cut them out. And they moved the stones maybe 100 yards and built the building. And so in many older constructions, it was availability of material, proximity to the building site, what governed what materials they were going to use. So if it was close by and easy to move, then that would be used to build with as much as possible.
I had a picture of a log cabin, which was a use of wood. I didn't see many log cabins, even in some of the older districts and some of the hill countries. You don't see many log cabins in the San Antonio area. Evidently, they weren't very popular. Now, your projects, one of the best known probably to the general public is the Stilwell House at Fort Sam Houston, which was redone and then it was reopened. I think originally it was redone about 10 years ago, and then reopened for the tricentennial for tours as a special events room.
I think the original restoration of the building happened in the early 80s, and it was functioned as a museum and then a meeting house and an event center for a long time. And then I think in 2016 it was hit by a very bad storm, the hailstorm, and they had a windstorm, and a portion of the building actually lifted up and then collapsed due to the wind, and the porch fell and collapsed upside down, and we had to take it apart piece by piece, salvage all the historic parts that we could, and reassemble it. It was like a giant puzzle. And we replaced the roof due to hail damage and restored the floors and stuff like that.
Is that when they put in the your grandfather's poker room?
Yeah, we donated a little bit to their cause, and in return, we were allowed to have one room to put a display up, and it's in memory of my grandfather, who was retired Army. He retired here in San Antonio. He lived to be 102, and he played poker every Thursday till he died. So we've got his old poker table, octagonal poker table and chairs, and his horse-haired covered couch and his desk, and all of his photo memorabilia from the wars.
Yeah, I think we have a video on that.
This is Wood with Guy Chipman Construction. We're here at our favorite place, the Stilwell House, just putting the final touches on everything. I guess the ghosts are messing with me here. It's keeping me from focusing. But anyway, this is the General Haynes room. And we met his grandson, who was here helping us set up things. Little memorabilia. That's General Haynes' mom, or wife, and his grandson's mom. She was 8 months pregnant when that picture was drawn. There's his uniform. Boy, tough stuff there. And then across the hall, pardon our mess, a little cleaning going on. We've got the Kleberg room, and there's General Kleberg's daughter's fiesta gown. Little historic memorabilia in here. That gown weighs like a lot. And now we're heading over to General Schimmel's room. I guess he was a general. There he is, smiling back at us. Maybe he was a colonel then. Let me see. And then for the second floor tour, last but not least, we have Jimmy.
Beautiful bean footage. I got mine. Beautiful.
And we're coming over to the Colonel Guy W. Chipman poker room here on the north end of the building. We got everything set up, including his poker table.
That's where the games will be played.
And his swords and other memorabilia, including my dad, Guy Chipman, and his tank, M4AE, he drove in World War II, and the colonel himself. Not hard to see with the reflections, but there he is, smiling back at us. And my grandmother and grandfather will permanently have a place here in the Stilwell House where they can reside with their very comfortable horsehair couch and the wicker chairs and all interesting memorabilia that's been around the house for so long and now has a place in history as part of the Stilwell House. We refinished the floors in here, fixed the plaster walls, fixed the roof that was damaging the plaster walls, repainted everything, refinished the floors, and decorated the room. Hope you guys get to come by and see it. It will be open tomorrow, Saturday, May 5th, and Sunday, May 6th, for a rare opportunity to come out and view the post, maybe even play a little poker here at the Colonel Guy Chipman poker room. Hope y'all will come out and see us.
And so then also you worked on the block house, which is in San Pedro Park.
That was one of the
I have a
oldest
photo of
projects
that.
I had worked on. The block house was supposedly built in around 1723. It was rumored to be a place where Santa Anna stayed, which was probably just a rumor. But anyway, the building was one of the oldest ones in San Antonio. It's in the middle of San Pedro Park. It's just a small stone house with a clay tile roof. But it's in a beautiful area of San Pedro Park.
Was it always in San Pedro Park?
It was, and I also got to work on the bandstand at San Pedro Park, which was once part of the zoo that was within the park, and it was the lion's pit. And then later on they turned it into a bandstand, but it was a part of the exhibit, and I went down into the stone pit below the bandstand and could see where the gates where they would push the lion in and out of and what have you. So
And
interesting.
then you also had the Navarro house, which we have a photo
I worked a
of.
little bit on the Casa Navarro here in downtown San Antonio. We furnished the gutters to match the historic half-round gutters for the building. And I also did some work at the Whitty Museum on the Ruiz house. And both those men were signers of the Declaration of Independence in Texas.
Well, you're a part of history.
I guess. I'm honored to be.
What do you see as the future of construction technology? When I first started the Green Connection over 20 years ago on this station, as a matter of fact, my focus was on alternative building materials, which have since seemed to fade out into the nowhere. The insulated concrete forms and the boards.
Oh, like the concrete mace?
No, the wooden, the ICFs and anyway, the full board construction, where you can put up a wall in a day.
Oh, like panelized construction and prefabricated.
Yeah.
Yes. There's new techniques and new materials coming out all the time. The longevity of which some has to be tested, because sometimes you come out with a new product and it looks great and it works good for the first couple of years, and then it doesn't work so well afterwards. So I've tried that with my front porch, and I used a composite material, and it had a 10-year warranty, but the manufacturer only stayed in business for 5 years. So you never know when you're talking new materials.
Does the OSB board come? Can you get it so that it's waterproof?
That's a good question. OSB is oriented strand board, and it's made out of chips of plywood that are glued together. And the one drawback of it is it's very susceptible to moisture. And when it gets wet, it expands up. And we've seen a lot of problems in new construction where it's been used and it's gotten wet, and then you've got all kind of problems. So I don't know if they have a waterproof version of it. It sure would be nice, though, if they did.
My handyman said he did, but I don't know.
It would be good.
I think he just invented it.
We had a house. We had to take all the stucco off because moisture got in behind and got the OSB wet.
Yeah.
And then
it goes
it
behind
cracked.
the studs.
As it expanded, it cracked the stucco, and then more moisture got in, and it became a big mess. So, yeah, a lot of new materials are coming out, and
Well, they
not
built
all.
all of the apartments that they're up now where Victoria Courts used to be, and it was all OSB. And I hated to see the old ones come down because that was stone, and it took them a year to knock it down.
Oh,
and
yeah.
this is going to fall down in not too long.
There was a lot of people upset when they took those down.
I lived just down the street. I found a vacant lot about 20 years ago and built a house there. And it was really nice. I don't know why everything has to change and everything's about money. Well, we didn't get into as many different things as I would like to. What about finding materials to match the places that you do that are from the 17, 18, early 1900s?
We work with people that reclaim buildings. There's a lot of buildings being torn down in San Antonio due to they've aged out, or somebody wants to build something new. And we work with contractors like Emily Lowry, who goes out and they will take the building apart piece by piece and bundle up the materials, and then we'll use them on the next project to match the historic materials. So if you have a longleaf pine floor and you need some more pine flooring, we can connect you with the flooring to match your historic. Right now we've got an exciting project coming up at the Synergy Studio. They are moving from their location at the Pearl to their new location on North Alamo. And they have a beautiful maple, 1-inch thick maple floor in there, and it's from an old basketball court originally, and it was installed at their studio at the Pearl. And now we're going to take that floor apart and install it at their new studio at Alamo. And so we're saving trees.
We're out of time.
We're saving trash, and we're saving
Do you
the
have
planet.
a website?
So, yes, my website is guychipmanconstruction.com.
And if you go to Guywood Construction YouTube,
Guy Chipman Construction
you'll find
YouTube.
the videos.
Yep.
Thank you for being with us. Everything goes so fast. If you have any questions, you have my email. I hope you enjoyed the show, and stay green.